Good morning, mushrooms. Today we're getting some bags ready for fruiting. We're putting rubber bands on them and we'll be opening them up. The whole point of the rubber bands is to avoid top pinning and side pinning. We only want the pins coming out where we open the bag. During my last runs, I did have quite a bit of pinning on the sides and top, and I think I lost some of my production because of that. So we're just going to quickly show how we use the rubber band. This was a technique that was shown to me on Facebook. Definitely a good resource for you. I found that YouTube can give you a lot of the basic and general information, but if you want specific tips and tricks, check out some of those Facebook groups. There's some pretty good tips in there. I've also seen people using tape for this. I've seen people who put the bags upside down to keep the top from fruiting. Well, I don't really like the idea of putting them upside down. The bottom of the bag is pretty flat and pretty square at this point, whereas the top is kind of rounded. I don't really want to have it fall over in the tent. The other thing is I have noticed when your fruits get big, the bag can actually fall over and fall off your shelf onto the floor, which is probably the worst case scenario as far as fruiting conditions go. Now you got mushroom all over the floor. You obviously bruised and damaged the fruit. It's not really sellable at that point. And, well, it's pretty frustrating to see that go to waste. So we put 3 rubber bands on it, 2 on the sides to keep the lid, or sorry, to keep the top folded back, and 1 at the top here. This is kind of just an extra layer, because if there is any air trapped up here, we don't want any oxygen getting up there. Like, this is a little bit of CO2 laden air up here. It's probably not going to fruit. And the filter patch is also kind of sealed off now, so shouldn't be much oxygen up here, and oxygen is what promotes fruiting. So we use the top band to keep that not oxygenated. Now, of course, the mycelium is still going to live up there, still going to bring those nutrients down as it needs it for the fruit. So we're not hurting anything by doing that. We're just getting it ready for fruiting in a good way, at least we hope. This is the first time I've used this method, but I don't really see how it could go bad. Now, we don't really need to be sterile for this technique. I'm not even wearing gloves, you can see. My hands are clean, but I'm not super worried about it. Once the bags are colonized, contamination risk is a lot lower because, well, mainly your contamination risk comes from the fact that you're starting out with an empty, or like sterile substrate, I should say, and the mushroom can't colonize the entire substrate at once. But once it's colonized, you know, the mushroom's got an immune system, it's got ways to fight off bacteria and viruses. So this fully colonized block, although it can get contaminated, you can get mold growing on it. Not as big as a concern as it is before it's colonized. So, you know, not wearing gloves here is really not a big deal. Alright, so that showed you really quick how we did it. We'll come back when we're in the tent and opening them up. And this is exactly why we want to do the rubber band method to keep the top fruits down. This is the top of one of our Pohu oyster bags. And it does already have primordia forming just from the colonization phase. And this has been up here for 11 days in colonization, so it doesn't take very long. Now, we got this primordia blocked off from air. It should just stop growing. Not a big deal. But the more that you have, the more that you have in your bag, the more energy the mushroom's using up, creating primordia that's not going to grow. So you do want to avoid that. Maybe next time I'll try to get these done a couple days earlier. We have all of our bags laid out in our grow tent ready to cut open. I found in the past that I was placing them a little bit too close together and the mushrooms would kind of grow together, which makes it hard to harvest one block without messing up the other block. So I'm trying to increase the spacing a little bit. You know, realistically, I got quite a bit of space in this tent, and I don't anticipate I'm going to be using it all at once anytime soon. So I'm okay with spacing it out a little bit here and there. With this spacing, I can get 36 blocks in the tent. And, you know, I'm pretty small scale. 36 blocks is a lot for me. And I don't know if I'll ever be growing that much at the same time. I hope so. But it's not something that I'm really trying to do as my goal, right? I'm just trying to grow some mushrooms here. So I did come along and I did spray the front of these bags where I'm going to cut them. This is just kind of to help them out. Make sure there's as little chances as possible of something bad happening for contamination. Now, I did mention earlier we don't need to worry about contamination as much, which is true, but better safe than sorry. So there's 2 main methods people use when cutting these bags. I'm going to be employing both methods because I'm not sure which one I like better. So one method is the X method, and this is just as it sounds, cutting an X in the bag. Of course, you want to make sure you cut all the way through it. So as the mushrooms grow, these flaps will open up and let the mushrooms come out, basically. It's your whole idea of it. Your other method is the window method, and this is where you're cutting a rectangle in the block instead of an X. You know, I'm not sure the advantages to this method versus the other. I don't know which one's better, or if one even is better than the other. So I think I'll do about half and half here and just kind of see what comes out. All right, we got all of our blocks opened up. As you can see, we usually mostly the X method here. Just because I don't know. I got a feeling that's the better method. I don't really know though. It just seems to make more sense to me to give the mushrooms that area where they can grow without opening up too much space. I feel like the window's going to open up a lot of space to let the moisture out. But like I said, this is all one big experiment, and we'll see which one grows better or if I can even tell the difference, you know. And one of the most important part of doing this, which people often overlook, especially when it comes to mushroom farming, is cleaning. This is all just from today. You know, I recently went through and bleached this whole tent down, cleaned it really well, made it as sterile as I could. Obviously, we can't get perfect sterilization on something like this. But when you have a tent, any little specks of mushroom substrate on the floor, that's just asking for contamination. You're just waiting for the mold to come into your tent now, especially as that humidifier kicks on. So I'll just quickly clean this up. I'll even spray the floor down with some alcohol and wipe it real quick just to, you know, make it extra clean. All right, thanks for joining me today. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Have a great day.